Hello, welcome to Friday. You all made it. I'm glad that you're here. Welcome to TLDCast. I'm your guest host today, Cara North, and I am joined today by some wonderful, wonderful people that also attended this event that I still have this from ATD ICE. So I didn't have as many ribbons as other people, but those were kind of the ribbons that I had. And if you've never heard of ATD ICE, or if you saw a bunch of posts on social media about ATD ICE, today what we're going to do is we're just going to go completely off the cuff, ask us anything about our experiences in ATD ICE. We want to make sure that you get the information that you need to see if that's a good conference for you and if that is something that you'd like to do in the future. So if this is your first time on TLDC, welcome, welcome. We're glad for you to be here. We are a community that meets at least maybe twice a week. We have these live sessions. We call them TLDcasts. And if you're interested, we do also have an open Slack community for you to join. So this Slack community is open to anyone in learning and development. And I'll go ahead and drop that link here into the chat if that's something that you would like to join. Again, great conversations going on, a lot about different jobs and consulting and just a little bit of everything. Your potpourri of L&D you can find in our Slack channel. So without further ado, we do have one other guest that should be joining us. So as soon as I see her, I'll go ahead and bring her on. But what I'd like to do is I'd like to introduce the lovely ladies joining me today. So Tracy, would you be kind enough to just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I am Tracy Shoyer, and I work at Discover Financial Services out of Ohio. And I am actually not in HR, but I am in operations. I'm in a team in operations that does training. So I'm more over kind of learning strategy for about the 250, 300 people that we do training for within operations. And then did you want me to talk just briefly about ATD, how I got?
Yeah, let's go ahead and go for that too. That sounds great.
Okay. So I learned about ATD probably early last fall, and ended up, my organization allowed me to sign up for national membership. And then I also was able to join the local Central Ohio ATD chapter, of which Cara is our lovely president, and started attending sessions. I would say January with the kickoff was kind of my first session that I got to attend with the local chapter. And it's been amazing. I've been able to network and meet so many different people. I got to connect with Cara and with the president-elect Dana Vogelmeyer at ATD, go to a lot of local events and hear from people. And this is how I even found out about TLDCast. Got to do a networking event with other TLDCast members when I was out in DC for the conference. So really great opportunity to make connections, to learn new things, and then even trying to figure out, with all these things I learned, how can I bring them back to my organization? So that's
outstanding. Outstanding. Okay, and Carmen, do you care to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yes, hi. Hi, everyone, and very glad to join you both, Cara and Tracy. My name's Carmen Bonilla. I'm joining from the greater New York City area. Today, I'm actually moving, so that's the reason for the boxes behind me. So yeah, feel free to join me here in the middle of this madness. I have been an ATD member since late 2017, if I'm recalling correctly, and really enjoy the chapter here in New York City. Very vibrant community. I can tell that the volunteers on our board, they really put in their time and effort to create great community for us. And I was very excited to participate in the ATD National Conference for my first time. So looking forward to sharing my insights as a first-time attendee.
Outstanding. Yes, and I was actually a first-time attendee too. I even have the badge here somewhere to prove it. And yeah, I think you guys both bring up great points about that ATD conference. So Tracy, you got involved at ATD also at a local level, and Carmen, obviously you did as well. I'm also involved at a local level. And so because of that local involvement, here's your pro tip number 1 today. You can go to the national conference for free. There's a catch. Okay, there's a catch. You do have to do volunteer work. And so that's actually how I met Carmen. Carmen and I connected volunteering this year. So that's why I invited her on. And also Yolanda, if she's going to be bringing, coming in a little bit later. Also met her through that. So if you're interested in volunteering, if you look below us, there should be a button that says ATD ICE resources. This is a nice Google Doc that we put together for you today with some resources and the link to sign up. There's Yolanda. I'll invite you on in just 1 second. If you're interested in volunteering, I have the link to get you into that list if that's something you want to do for ATD Denver. I believe that's going to be the third week of May next year in Denver. So if you're interested, please sign up. I met the volunteer coordinator. Her name's Kelly. She's fantastic. I also have a link to her LinkedIn page if you'd like to connect with her. Very nice lady, very excited about getting a lot of people involved in ATD 2020. So again, you can go to ATD ICE for free, but you have to help out. So what that looks like is, again, I'll go back to my badge here. You get daily badges for volunteering. So what that means is for every day that you volunteer, you get a complimentary day. So it's like a 1-to-1. So every day you volunteer, you get a complimentary day. Now, if you actually sign up and you get your complimentary badge and you go AWOL and you ghost, guess what happens? ATD charges you. Oh yeah, they're going to get their money for sure. So they're going to get their money regardless. So I had the pleasure of being the day manager on Oprah Day, which was bananas, and I'll go into a little bit. And then also was a room monitor, which means that I, counted the people in the rooms and then also helped facilitate crowd control, which was also an issue at ATD ICE. We'll talk about here in a minute. But Carmen, real quickly, do you mind to tell us a little bit about your volunteer experience? And I'm going to invite Yolanda on to talk about hers as well.
Sure. So the process was fairly easy, and I was very pleased that this year it was open to volunteers from all over the region. I have seen some other conferences that sometimes they close it, and this was a very open process. I think they did a really good job in terms of using technology to getting us signed up. It was easy to choose the sessions and the days. I got to plan for my schedule ahead of time. I knew the role that I would be playing. I got to choose the role, so that was really good. And so we arrived. We had a volunteer orientation on the day before the start of the conference, and there we got the information. Although it's such a large conference, it was so easy, I thought. And I gotta say, the organizing and the planning ahead by our volunteer leaders, I think that made all the difference. They provided the information that we needed, and I felt very clear on what I needed to do, how I was going to contribute. The place also was huge, the convention center. And in one of my roles, I was walking all over to visit and assist the different sessions going on. So as a side benefit, I got a really nice workout.
For sure. Yeah. The day that I was day manager, I logged 22,000 steps. So yeah, I'm with you. I got a nice little workout that day too, but by the end of the day, I didn't want anyone near me. I was like a sim with like the little thing above me. Like I needed a shower so bad. Like I couldn't stay. I was like, please, I will do whatever, but I need to shower first. And Tracy can attest to that because we went to dinner that evening. I was like, I just need to go shower and I'll be okay. Right. So thank you. I think those are all great points. And I agree with most of those as well, especially with the technology and coordination. But we have actually been joined by our fourth esteemed panel member today. So I'd like to introduce everyone to Yolanda. And Yolanda, what I'd like to do is I made you the focal point here. If you would just be kind of just to introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about how you ended up going to ATD ICE, and then what we were talking about is your experience as a volunteer for 2019.
Sure. Well, thank you so much, and good morning, everybody. So I am a training manager with the Maryland Governor's Office on Service and Volunteerism. So work with several people who help to carry out Governor Hogan's initiatives. So I learned about this because I used to sit on the Maryland ATD board as the director of programs and events. So I'm very passionate about training and talent development. So I learned about the opportunity because the DC Metro chapter Metro DC chapter was hosting the event. And in talking with Bernadette and Stephanie Hubka, I was asking about opportunities to really be engaged a little bit more. I really have been wanting to connect, not just nationally, but internationally, and just kind of share best practices. And I found that by volunteering, I was very much like integrated into the process for how things are flowing for the day and how to really support the ATD chapters as well as the ATD National. Yeah.
Yeah. And I met Yolanda in the volunteer office. So I was just like, yay. So again, it's really great when you get to meet people. And that's kind of one of my little pro tips for, I think, ATD ICE in general is volunteering is a great way to meet people. It's a great way to meet people. You meet people that maybe you wouldn't necessarily connect with. And shameless plug here, I see Mr. Mike Lenz in the chat. If you're volunteering for the day, and I know it can be a little bit kind of busy if you're working and people are like, oh, what a drag, like I don't get to see people. What I did was the day that I was volunteer manager, I knew I'd mostly kind of be right around the volunteer manager room. I put a call out on social media. Hey guys, Monday, I will be in this space. Please come by and say hi. And Mr. Mike Lenz, who I've known online for years, never had the pleasure of meeting in real life. He came by and it just made my day. It just absolutely made my day to finally meet him and give him a hug and just tell him how great he is and how much he's just been a huge supporter of my career. So Mike, I really appreciate you. I know that you're here, but also get to meet other people as well that I hadn't actually got to meet face to face. So Tracy, as a non-volunteer, how did you make those connections at the conference?
So it was probably a little bit more difficult for me as a non-volunteer, but also as an extreme introvert. That conference was exhausting to me every single day. There was a few times I just needed to step aside and just rest and do my thing, kind of go back through my notes and everything like that. But I did try to put myself out there. I even was thinking before I went of trying to challenge myself to meet so many new people a day kind of thing. But what was interesting is people are so open and interested in what you do. And I told Dana one night, I said, I'm among my people. I'm finally among my people and we're all geeking out about the same stuff. So it ended up being a lot easier because of that, because we're all there for that same reason. So Yolanda, I know you mentioned expanding your international networking, and surprisingly, I was able to do that too. I met people from Singapore, the Philippines, India, even went to dinner one night with people from, there was somebody from Texas and from India, and got to learn about what they do and the crossover in the US and stuff like that. So I did have to put myself out there a little bit, but the benefits were huge in being able to learn about what other people do and share some of my information with other people too.
I think those are great tips. Absolutely great tips, especially about putting yourself out there, because it can be really hard. And like you said, I mean, I was totally zapped at the end of every day as well, because it was almost sensory overload, right? I mean, it really, really was. There's all these flashing lights, and then like Seth Godin walks by you and you're like, hey, that was totally Seth Godin that just walked in front of me. That's pretty cool. So Carmen, tell me a little bit about you, since you were also a first-time attendee like me. What was kind of like your first impression when you went into the conference?
Yeah, totally. Happy to share. So for sure, one of the first things that I was thinking of is, wow, ATD is huge. And here I went back to, in my memory, to the first time that I learned about ATD. Back at the start of my career, I had first become a member of SHRM, and I had attended their huge conference. This was like 20 years ago. And so I knew about the great numbers of participants that SHRM brought together, but I didn't know how large ATD was. And going back in time, my first experience of ATD was that the first ATD chapter in Puerto Rico was getting established. So my impression of the organization was, the assumption I made was it's a smaller organization, right? We're getting the chapter for the first time. And so when I arrived at the national conference now, this is like 20 years later, and I was like, wow, this is huge. This is, the same capacity, the same numbers that I had seen at the SHRM conference back in the day. And so that was a great impression for me. Because it got me thinking of, when I'm looking for new opportunities in the job market, it feels as though the learning and development opportunities are smaller in number than the HR generalist opportunities. And when I saw the number of participants and attendees, I was like, wow, this is really amazing. So this was an impression that I started forming, and for sure, the space was another impression for me. What a nice space we had in Washington D.C. It just felt like, yes, we have this space. It's all to ourselves. Even taking space from the Marriott Hotel in addition to the convention center. So it was just very, very exciting about about having all of that to us. And in particular, just having that spaciousness to us. I'm guessing, part of it, I'm coming from an experience where conference rooms for training were a little bit limited. And so the conference just provided a completely different experience.
Yeah, I totally agree with that as well. Especially if you went to the sessions in the ballrooms, those were almost like way too big. So, I mean, these were probably rooms, no joke, that had maybe 1,500 to 2,000 chairs. And I found them really kind of sterile, and it was really kind of hard because, I mean, there were rows upon rows upon rows upon rows of chairs. And I mean, I even thought, even with the people with microphones and their lecterns, I really thought they needed like a megaphone sometimes in some of those rooms. I mean, they were just massive. So Yolanda, I know that you have kind of that government background, and I think Carmen has a really great point about, she came from kind of this HR space, and now she's like looking for whatever. So when you were at ATD ICE, were you looking for people kind of also in that government sector, or were you looking for other people, or who were the people you were most excited about connecting with?
Okay, so I was really, so I'm the only training manager in my actual department, I guess, per se. So for me, it was just really important to connect with those across all sectors. So prior to this, I worked in the corporate sector. I've been with the governor's office for about 3 months now. But prior to this, I had about maybe 6 years in management consulting. So working in learning and development for private firms, kind of similar to an Accenture or Deloitte or something like that. And then I was working for like Mason, an asset management company, leading the learning function there. So for me, I mean, just moving into the government sector for the first time, being in the public sector, I really didn't like focus on potentially like meeting people who were in the government sector. I was really just kind of looking for best in class, like best practices, because here, I'm working in a silo a lot and just like wanting to hear what others are doing across all different sectors and fields, and sharing like knowledge was important to me.
Great. Yeah, I agree. It's always good when you get to step out of your box for a little bit and go kind of explore and like meet other people. So outstanding. All right. I think it's time to talk about those magical keynote people, right? Because weren't there like some big names at ATD ICE that were keynotes, right? So before I yes, Oprah, yes. Before I have Tracy, Carmen, and Yolanda talk a little bit about the keynotes, I want to also share another pro tip with you if you've never been to ATD ICE. One of the advantages of getting involved in your local ATD chapters is if you attend ATD ICE, and again, this happened this year, it's pretty common practice with the ATD conference, you get special seating for the keynotes. Now, with that being said, are you like sitting right next to Oprah? No, but there is a section reserved exactly only for the chapter leaders. And so you get those tickets like the first day that you're there. You coordinate that with the ATD national people, and you get your tickets, and they're general admission just like everybody else. So unfortunately, you still have to wait kind of in the lines to go, but you do kind of have special seating where you can sit with the people at your local ATD chapter. And Laura, that's a good tip. So Laura says if you have an ATD certification, the CPLP or APTD, you can also get special seating. That is good to know. So thank you for sharing that. I didn't know that little piece of it. So I actually didn't get to go to any of the keynotes. I was working both days, so I missed Seth Godin as well as Oprah, but you know what, that's okay. It's fine. I got to hear a lot about it, but I do know that there are people here that did go to that. So Tracy, I'm going to kick it off with you because I know that you and my roommate, Dana Vogelmeyer, got up super early to go. So tell me, give us the deets. Tell us about standing in line. Tell us about what that looks like. Like, give us kind of all the information about just getting to the keynote and what that was like.
So I did not get up super early with Dana.
Oh, okay.
I like Oprah, but I'm not a super fan.
Gotcha.
So I know Dana did get up like 5:30 in the morning or something like that, went in line. But by the time I think it started at 8:30, the Oprah session, got there about 7:15, got in line. It was a really long line taking you through the downstairs of the convention center until you go up to the halls. But they had a DJ in the hallway playing music, getting people pumped up. And it was just very exciting, the anticipation of going into the room. And then the room, Cara talked about, 1,500 people or something. This was set up for 13,000, 14,000 people. Like, it was just overwhelming, amazing. They had screens along the way. So even if you couldn't see the stage, you had a clear vision of the speaker. So Oprah was great. I had never heard her speak. I knew, a little bit about her just from being on TV and stuff like that. But she said something to me that it was that Monday session. She talked about following your gut instinct and making sure you listen to your gut. And what was interesting is it was Wednesday night. Everything had wrapped up with the conference. And then I got the invite to the TLDCast get together that evening. And it was in Virginia, but it was only like a 20-minute Lyft ride. And I thought to myself, I'm exhausted. I mentioned I'm an introvert. I just need to go chill. And something inside of me was telling me, go, 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 go. So I did go, put myself out there, didn't know anybody else there. And as I was sitting there, Peter Gunther was next to me, and he mentioned Megan was on her way. And I'm like, okay. Well, she came, and it was Megan Torrance from Torrance Learning that had done the llama session I attended a couple of days earlier. And I'm not a super fan of Oprah, but I quickly, after Megan's session, became a super fan of Megan. I was like, oh my God, I'm sitting at a table with Megan, having, a drink, stuff like that. And we actually got to share a Lyft ride back to DC afterwards. So I got to talk to her about XAPI and llama and all kinds of things. And we went back and forth. So I got back to my room that night and I thought, thank you, Oprah. I listened to my gut and I did go to that. So that was really helpful.
That was beautifully scripted. Like I wasn't expecting that. That was beautiful.
And then Seth Godin also spoke, and I knew of him before. I didn't know, in detail, never heard him speak, watched any of his podcasts or listened to any of his podcasts. But he was, I took a couple notes. He said it took one person that said, follow me. And that was a really big statement that he made. I actually had bought a book early on in the bookstore. and was one of 150 people that got the free book signing afterwards.
Nice.
So
Woo!
yeah, I met a girl from Maryland in line, and we took each other's pictures of getting our book signed by Seth. And then Eric Whitaker, I know a lot of people had to leave early to miss traffic or to catch their flights, but he was amazing. Never heard of this guy before. He's a composer and conductor. He had a couple local choirs, I think it was, came in. And just the things that he had done were just overwhelming. And his big message was that you need to be a part of something bigger than yourself, and the feeling that comes with that and what he's done with his music. So very, very good speakers. Didn't know a lot about, a couple of them beforehand, but just amazing.
What a great summary of all of those. So thank you, Tracy. Again, I kind of got chills when you're talking about like your connection with Megan. And if you haven't had the honor of meeting Megan Torrance in real life, she's just a lovely person. So I'm glad that you were able to make the connection with her. Real quick before I switch over to Carmen to get her reactions, I just want to say Tracy Cantu, who is the NAC extraordinaire. She used to be our national advisor at chapters for my ATD chapter, but we got a new one, and our new NAC is also equally as good. But I want to at least share what she said in the chat just for the replay and then the podcast version of this. She says that at the ATD ICE, the front seats are reserved for chapter leaders, committee advisory members, and the CPLP APTDs. So she says there's no need to get up super early for the keynote when you're in one of those groups. So that's another great pro tip, Tracy. I appreciate you telling us that. And Carmen, do you care to talk a little bit about your experiences with the keynotes?
Yes, totally. So nothing to report on the opera presentation. I was volunteering that day, and my volunteering post, I was away from the keynote. But I did get to catch a little bit of Seth Godin, and something that really stuck for me was, will you choose to matter? Here, I might be paraphrasing. This is a question that he left us with. And I was like, whoa, what a question. Thank you, Seth. Really, really strong message. And then Eric's final, the wrap-up keynote, it was amazing. I had the opportunity to participate in it. And in fact, I met up with a group who had saved the first row. So I got to sit first row for that one. And I was just so thankful that they had saved me a spot. And my big takeaway from that was the tears. The tears that came up for me. And as I'm telling you, I'm feeling goosebumps. That's how intense that was for me. And it was just beautiful. It was such a nice surprise to see that he brought in that in-person choir and the song, again, feeling the goosebumps. It was just amazing for me. In fact, I have continued to look him up on YouTube, look up his channel, and play his videos of other songs that he has done with virtual choirs. And so I'm really admiring his work. It's pretty amazing, and just love the experience that it creates for me.
Love it. Love it. And I got really excited just hearing you talk about that as well. So it's always great when you have kind of that emotional connection to something. Obviously, it sounds like both of you ladies so far have. If you're just joining us, welcome, welcome. I know that we've got a lot of people kind of sliding in the back door, which is fine. If you want to get our resources today, there's a green button beneath our video for ATD ICE resources, has ways to connect with all the panelists today, some tips and tricks about ATD ICE. And this is actually open, so everybody should also be able to add their own tips. So if you're in the chat and you did attend ATD ICE, feel free to put some of your stuff on there as well. So this is about the community at large. Now, Yolanda, how was it for you?
Yeah, so I was really excited. I got to see Seth Godin, and for me, I think I really was kind of learning about Seth for the first time. So unlike some people that were like enthusiasts and champions for him, like of him, I didn't kind of know about Seth Godin. And so this was amazing because I was like, oh, really? His blog is actually like one of the #1 blogs out there. Okay, I guess I need to hop on this and check this out. But for me, it really resonated with me because he talked a lot about the future of work and being in the talent development space. I've been thinking a lot about how work is changing, and he's talking about how machines are going to take over those jobs that, you know, are ordinary jobs and that a lot of us kind of already do and that are very run of the mill and routine. And what really spoke to me is that we really need people who are going to innovate, that are going to push against the grain. And so who are going to be, you know, just kind of go-getters and champion projects and say, I'm really passionate or I'm really interested about this and take ownership of that. So that really spoke to me. I wrote a blog with my 5 top takeaways from ATD and put that on LinkedIn. And definitely, you know, Seth Godin just kind of spoke to me in terms of really being that self-leader. So right now I'm not a people manager. I am just kind of leading myself and hoping to really kind of influence people on the job, share new ideas, and kind of really champion a few projects.
Great. And I will also put a plug out there for Yolanda's blog. It is excellent. So Yolanda, if you want to drop that in the chat where other people can also see it and then also add it to our resource page today, I'm sure people would also appreciate that. Okay. All right. So we've talked about the keynotes a little bit. We've talked about how we ended up going. How about we talk about some of like the sessions that we actually went to? And again, for me, I worked most of the conference. I didn't get to go to a whole lot of sessions, but I want to share just like one quick takeaway that I had from a leadership session that I went to. I have that linked on the page, that the resource page that I shared. It was by a gentleman. His name is Dr. Bill Gentry, and he is an academic. So any of the, and that, I guess that's another thing I should throw out there. I do work at a university, but I'm still very kind of, if I had like a tattoo, it'd say like corporate L&D, you know, like I'm still like got that kind of, you know, mentality, because that's where I learned, you know, the business. So if there were higher ed sessions that I wasn't working, I did try to go to those, because I think total there were maybe like 8 total at the entire conference. So ATD is really trying to also open up for higher ed and learning and development, instructional design, etc. So I wanted to support my people, right? So I go to his session and he's talking about leadership. And of course, everybody's like, oh, leadership, it's all overdone. It's all, you know, everybody talks about it, whatever. But he said something that resonated with me so much. Like I got goosebumps just like you all. So he was talking about the path to leadership. And he said, okay, when you become a leader, let's stop and think about how you got there. And again, I'm completely paraphrasing, so please, this isn't, you know, direct quote. He said, when we get to the leadership seat, we do it by being selfish. He said a lot of times it's about your individual performance. It's about what you bring to the business. It's about everything that you do. But he said the minute you become a leader, you need to flip the script, and it's not about you, it's about them. And I was like, woo! Yes, believe it. Yeah, I love that. And he said that's why so many leaders fail, because they were successful in being selfish. They were successful focusing on them all the time. So when they have challenges with leadership, when like things don't happen, they revert back to kind of those old habits, because it helped them be successful and help lead them to where they currently are. So I loved that. I needed to hear something like that, I guess, at that point in time. And that was one of the biggest takeaways from me. So it really got me thinking a little bit more just about like leadership and how you get there. So Tracy, I'm going to scoot over to you. Share some of maybe some takeaways that you had from a session or two, or maybe like the big one outside of a keynote that you may have walked away with.
Okay, so the big thing I walked away with is knowing what XAPI is. And so I got to talk, I mentioned with Megan Torrance about that, but I found out about it for the first time, even though it's been out for several years now, from Mel Milloway's session that she had, and took a ton of notes about different tools and systems. And she even has on her melslearninglab.com a lot of resources that you can access. And immediately, you know, within a few days, really went into my company's intranet site and did a search on XAPI to see if our HR training and development had done anything with it. Found out a little bit more about that, still trying to find out some more about that. But the functionality and the abilities that it gives you to extend beyond what the LMS with tracking gives, I'm like, the timing is right for us to kind of move into that space. So I would say that XAPI, and then the other thing was really more about the personalized learning journeys. And even thinking, one of the speakers had said, it's not about linear learning anymore. You don't just go in, you take the class from start to finish. This is your map of what you need, standard for everybody, but it's more personalized in talking about adaptive learning and how you can set up courses or you can set up the journeys to have more of that adaptive learning technique. So I've definitely been looking a lot more into those concepts since I've been back from the conference.
So you jumped down that technical piece, huh? So you really got a lot of like the technical side of the conference, right? That's awesome. Yes. And I love the fact you already took it back to work. You're searching, you're trying to find out more information. That's what it's all about. I mean, right there, hopefully that is value add of the conference to you, that you learned about this and then you're digging a little bit deeper. And a quick little side note, I finally did meet Mel Milloway. Had not met her in real life. Again, had been friends online for a long time. And I swear, like, unicorns just came together and it was like rainbows when we finally met. So that was, again, another highlight for me, finally meeting her and getting our picture together at the conference. So again, another great example there. Carmen, what about you? What are some of the things that you took away from some of the sessions that you went to?
Yes, totally. I actually want to mention real quick Seth Godin's book that was distributed at the conference. I totally love that he had written about education and how to improve it, etc. You can, if you didn't get the book, I believe that you can still find this content in his blog. It's taken from the blog. So yeah. I found myself gravitating towards leadership development sessions. And I chose the sessions that I attended by the title. Whatever title grabbed me, that's where I went. And then I noticed, I am choosing sessions from the leadership development track. So that was quite interesting. The one session that really stood out for me was early in the morning, one of the first sessions that I attended by Brian O'Neill from AIMCO. This is a real estate company that manages or invests in luxury real estate properties. And Brian basically walked us through a case study of what he has done to transform the leadership development program there. And it was just so interesting to see, how he showed us. Prior to his program, only 30 people were participating in leadership development a year. After his program, he has about 180 participating. And he has transformed it in such a way that his cost per person, if I'm recalling correctly, it's below $1,000. So, a really, really great case study that got me thinking about, what is important to a company when it's putting together its leadership development program. He mentioned a number of different factors that included number of participants and cost per person. And it was just very, very engaging. So for sure, that's something that I took away. Something else from my experience as a volunteer, as I was walking around the different sessions and linking to Tracy's share, was I noticed big interest into the technology sessions. It was amazing. They were full. And I also noticed sessions about new training techniques were very well attended. So it tells me, our colleagues were getting ready to create some new stuff. And I hope that they find receptive workplaces going back and pitching some new ideas for their programs.
Great. So real quick, just a clarifying question about that leadership training that you went to. You mentioned a lot of great factors about like the cost per person and just how they, went through it. What was like kind of the most attractive part of that for you? Like, were you able to take any of that to your particular company, or what was kind of like your biggest takeaway besides that?
So actually getting to think about the different factors, and here let me pull up. I'm wanting to share some more, because it was definitely a list of things. And so what I found interesting is, I want to work on leadership development programs. So it gave me this high level view of how do we take something that may be there already and improve it. I also saw him, he brought in, I believe it's the Ken Blanchard company that he was experienced with, and he's using them as part of their delivery of the program. Something else that he said, this was really nice and similar to the quick quote that you gave for your session earlier, Cara. He said, let's get away from the idea that we graduate participants from a leadership development program. Instead, he suggested we certify them. And suggested to us, don't use the word graduation because learning never stops.
There you go.
So
Love it.
Certification being a better approach.
Yeah, there you go. There's I think that's the golden nugget from that one. So woohoo! All right, Miss Yolanda, what do you have? What were some of your big takeaways in the sessions that you were able to go to?
Yes. So one of my favorite sessions is actually from Dr. Kirkpatrick. So real world evaluation for training professionals. So for me, I went to grad school for adult learning, organizational learning. And so I've heard all about Kirkpatrick's evaluations, as you guys have as well. But I was just really enthralled with the fact that his son was going to be facilitating the session. So it was facilitated by James Kirkpatrick. And what really stuck with me is the fact that learning professionals are strategic business partners, or if you're in a government sector or a nonprofit sector, strategic organizational partners. So that's so it resonates with me because I do a lot of one-time training, and I'm trying to make sure that that's integrated into being a more sustainable model for folk. So I'm looking a lot at my training that I'm developing. I actually am working very collaboratively with my colleagues and asking them, hey, how can I make sure that this is integrated into the greater plan? So really having those conversations to make sure that we're not just doing one-time training, we are looked at as partners. So that kind of goes both ways, reaching out as well as people reaching out to you and saying, hey, can you do this training? Can you develop this module? Or put together this manual. So for me, it's really getting to the point where I'm not just doing smile sheets during the training or after the training, making sure that I really get to that level 3 and 4. And it's a little bit harder. So he really talked about how a lot of people just stop. They get to that level 3 and they're like, all right, I'm just going to stop. So if you went to school for this, or if you kind of have been, taking courses, then about kind of the older model. So he talks about, I have it on my board here.
Love it.
The New World Kirkpatrick model. So if you guys see here, level 4 is really getting to the results, to the degree to which targeted program outcomes occur and contribute to the organization's highest level result. So a lot of times it's just really hard to get data points on this. So we really need to really think deeply about how to integrate ourselves with the organization's model or strategic development plan, so that we're really having those conversations about how is performance changing. So for me, I work with a lot of nonprofits and higher education institutions. So I'm trying to get data on, hey, what are you doing differently? How have you increased the number of partners that you're working with? How have you, seen your performance improve as a result of the capacity building and the training that I've been providing to you?
I have a question. So I see a lot of love on the sidebar for Tim Slade, who had a great session that we had to turn a lot of people away from at it. And he actually came by to visit me, which I appreciate. And one thing he told me about just his experience at ATD was he was still surprised how many just brand new people were at ATD ICE this year, like that they were just brand new to L&D. So you bring up the point, Yolanda, about, you knew who Kirkpatrick was. You went to school, you heard about it. Did you get a sense there were a lot of kind of those new people in that session that maybe never heard of the Kirkpatrick evaluation model, or did you get any sense of that at all?
I didn't feel like there were a lot, only because I think this particular session, if I remember correctly, it was targeted toward learning managers and more so. You know how they have like the director track and learning management track? So I think a lot of people there were either solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, or those who were kind of directors or training managers. So not too many new people. And you know what? I'd encourage people to actually hop tracks, right? Like, so I did kind of that science of learning track, because I was doing that with my complimentary session day, and then I did the training delivery learning management because of my current role. But I definitely encourage people. I was looking around and I said, geez, it's mostly directors here, people who have their own businesses. I didn't see a lot of newbies. So I definitely would encourage people, even if you're not a manager, just check it out. You know what I mean? I don't know.
I mean, we were taught in the volunteer office to actually look at the badges and look at the color, but it doesn't say like your job title or anything on there. So legit, you could go in there. There's no like secret handshake to get into these special events, right? Like, I mean, it is kind of first come, first serve. So that's a great tip. Great tip. Speaking of tips, I think that's probably where we're going to go to next. So if you have been to ATD ICE, please again put your information there in the chat if you want to add to this kind of lengthy discussion here. But what are some tips for people if this is like their first ATD ICE or they really kind of want to go? So what are some of those tips that you think about? And while you're thinking, I'll go ahead and just talk about a couple of mine. Number one, I think it's really important to potentially be involved with your local ATD chapter, even if you don't like your local ATD chapter and you had a bad experience. Get involved, because that's how I got involved in my ATD. I went to a particular event. I didn't really care for it, and I said, I think I can do better. And so I joined the board, and now I'm president. So, don't just complain about it, but get involved. So the reason I emphasize that piece of it is because it's so important to kind of make connections with people. And there are a lot of local ATD chapter leaders that go to these ATD events, obviously. So it's always great to meet different people and kind of hear what they're doing. Plus, again, as Tracy also mentioned in the chat, you do get preferential seating for the big events. So that's also another fringe benefit. And also that's usually how you find out about the volunteer opportunities. So again, Carmen and Yolanda backed that up because they were kind of involved with their local ATD chapters, and that's how they learned about it. But again, if you're not involved, I have put resources in our doc to get you plugged in if you want to volunteer at Denver, because I want to make sure everybody knows about that great opportunity. And the second tip I'll give you, wear comfortable shoes. Okay, you're going to be walking. Nobody's going to be looking at your feet. I'm sorry. I mean, you may be cute from the waist up. That's fine. It's all good. You wear those comfortable shoes. This is a lot of walking. It's a lot of standing in line. I actually made a friend standing in line for the bathroom. So especially like between the sessions, it's really hard to get in and out of the restroom really quickly. So those are kind of my tips. Tracy, I'm going to pop it over to you. What are some of your tips?
Oh gosh. So one thing that I found before the conference was the app. ATD has an app that you can download and you can figure out your schedule. So you can look at all the sessions. And Laura had put in the chat about having 2 to 3 sessions at a time. One of the good things for that is, like, I had signed up for had Tim Slade as my number 1 for that time slot. I got locked out even though I got there a few minutes early. So I already had a second one I knew I wanted to go to. I didn't have to go back to the list and take the time to look. So I just bolted for the next room. I do like the idea, Laura, that you said about the recordings, that some of them say that they are recorded or they're not recorded. And then the one thing I didn't know until I actually got there is that if I scrolled up a little bit more, a lot of the decks were out there too. So when I couldn't decide between, if I had 3 during that time or 2 during that time, I would take a look at those decks to kind of see, can I just take the deck and kind of run with it and look up more online if I need to, or is this something maybe I want to sit in on? So that app was extremely helpful for me. I'm trying to think of any more tips. I did not wear the most comfortable shoes, and that really hurt me at the end, especially running around trying to find a location for one thing. I ended up running around the building, I think, one and a half times or so. But then put yourself out there. Like that was from before, just putting yourself out there, talking to people, and not being afraid to share. And it was interesting because I was waiting in line for registration that first day I got in, talking to a girl that I came over on the shuttle bus with. And then one lady behind us was like, "Can I get into your conversation? I'm having the same issue." And I'm like, "Yeah." And so we got to talk more about that. So don't be afraid to talk and share things with other people.
That's great. Yeah. And I'll give another plug about the app because hopefully they'll continue to do this. But something that we found out in the volunteer office was in the app, it actually had a GPS function. So it had like where it's like you are here and then you wanted to go to like another room and find it. You could tap on it and it would like navigate you to where you needed to go, which was extremely helpful because, again, the convention center was kind of in 2 different buildings that were side by side. So you didn't really know a lot of times which side to be in. So yeah, the app was really, really good. And I'm really not a big fan of conference apps in general because I'm not a big fan of disposable technology. Like, why should I download something if I'm just going to use it one time? But yeah, that app was pretty good. So great tips. Carmen, what do you got?
Yeah. So something that I suggest is take some time to think ahead of arriving. What are your goals for the conference? What will make it a really good conference for you? Because there is so much to do and see that having these goals can be very helpful for you to choose and in how you're going to spend your days there. So for example, something that I was curious about at this conference was exploring opportunities. I'm interested in a new organizational development role. And so I saw, there was a mini job fair for 1 hour in the Career Center. There was the opportunity to meet with different ATD colleagues who brought in their open jobs. And they were very, very happy to discuss them. They gave you the insight, etc. So that was very helpful. Having that north of what am I here for? Because it's definitely going to be a lot more that you can absorb in the 4 days if you're attending the conference. I also want to mention, as another, we're definitely making the plug for volunteering. It's a lot of fun, and at the same time, I want to share that if you're really in there for the content as a volunteer, you don't have the full opportunity to sit down for all the sessions. So that's something that I'm curious about. What would my experience be like if I'm actually there as a regular attendee? So that's definitely curiosity in the back of my mind. Not sure if I will do it for 2020. I think I'm excited to join as a volunteer again. But I just want to share that as well. So those are some thoughts attending the first time. I would definitely suggest, try and be there before the conference starts, because there are pre-conference days. And so that allows you to even walk around and sort of explore the space, see, all that's in there. As I'm giving you this tip, I'm thinking about, I'm remembering when I discovered the books at at the back of the ATD store, there were books selling like on sale, clearance sale. And and my thought was, this like cool things that we like to discover. And, I was like, oh my goodness, I could actually buy studies for a discounted price at the ATD store. And the only way that I was able to learn of that was by having that little extra time to explore.
Great tips. And again, I will also add another one. Make sure you have room for all the swag you bring home. So this year you actually got a backpack and it was chock full of things. And then, there you go. Yolanda's got hers. Yeah. And then, I went to the expo floor and I was like a kid trick or treating, I just had it open, like going down, like, fill me up. I want to go up. All right, Yolanda, what are some of your tips?
Oh gosh, it's so funny because I came back to my office and I was sharing with people. I got all this stuff, like free swag and books, and this is all the free stuff that I got from the expo, my books. And this was just on my complimentary day. So you guys, I didn't go to the conference like every day. So I thought this was pretty cool because then I went online to look at Suzanne Fowler's book, and she's selling this on Amazon for like $20. And she gave that away for free. So anyways, I'm a big fan of just, and then here's the ATD. So don't forget to sign up if you're not a member. I'm a selfless plug for myself because before I went to volunteer, I actually looked at the sessions and I said, what sessions are listed for session monitors? So I think that's one thing because I knew that the session monitor opportunities that were available had the room number listed below that. So I actually went, I don't think I had my program with me, but I actually went online to look at the program and I said, I'd like to be a session monitor for room number 202 or whatever. And I looked online and I said, I'm curious if those sessions would be of interest to me. So I was a little bit selfish in the fact that, yes, I was volunteering. Yes, I was giving back and serving. But at the same time, I knew that if I'm going to be in the same room all day, I want to make sure that those sessions are of interest to me, right? So that's definitely one tip that I have. I plan to definitely sign up to volunteer to go to Colorado next year. But, as soon as those logistics or whatever that information's put out, definitely review the opportunities and do your research. The second plug that I have is just for the chapters. To Kara's point, I went to the networking event that was free that the Metro DC chapter held. It was at Bus Boys and Poets. It was like a block away from the venue. And I continue to network. I continue to meet people. I brought my business cards, so do remember to bring your cards. It's so simple, but we always forget, right? And definitely make sure that you don't just go back to your hotel at the end of the night. Try to, even if you get tired, definitely, try to maybe go to at least one after hours event just to kind of continue that networking experience.
Great tips. And I cannot believe it's almost the end of our time. So welcome again. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it. And we had 3 brand new first-time TLDCast with us today. So thank you again to Tracy, Carmen, and Yolanda. I appreciate all your time. Again, I'm so glad I got to experience ATD ICE with the 3 of you. And thank you so much. And I think really great tips. And again, please share our resource page, even with people that couldn't be here. So I'll also be putting this in the TLDC Slack after this session wraps up. But again, if you're interested in ATD ICE, I'm sure I speak for the ladies here, reach out to us. I'm sure we can give you even more tips and tricks. All 3 of us, obviously, all 4 of us rather, still like to connect with people. So again, please feel free to reach out. And with that, enjoy your Friday. Have a wonderful weekend and take care.
Bye.
Yes, bye.